All right.
Hi everyone. So welcome to Bitcoin Talk with Ugly Old Goat. Came from nearby Mexico to visit us, and so we're going to talk about Bitcoin in this show. What we're going to do first, we're going to look a little bit about risk and reward ratios. There's a lot of questions there. I think that there's a lot of information there for you guys to learn there. Then we're going to talk about um, profit loss and execution principles. So we're going to get into that. Then we're going to talk about dollar cost averaging on steroids, as Ugly coined it, and it's similar approach to what Ugly Old Goat is writing about, but with a little twist. It just makes it so much more rewarding. And then we're going to finish with talking about a little bit out there things like fractals and the code of universe, and we're going to go deep into that as well. And we're going to finish off with just general Bitcoin impact and the future in a society, more looking at more zoomed out picture. And so that's it. So if you guys, first of all, I want to say that this is a rare opportunity. This is a person who's been consistently successful in trading year after year, and there's not a lot professional traders out there. So I highly suggest to listen to his every word. There's like over 40 years experience in investing and trading.
Well, I've been trading since I was 23 years old, so it's been I'm 70 years old now. So it's getting close to 50 years.
Yeah. So there you go. There's 50 years of experience sitting right there.
Yeah, and I wasn't a winner all those years either. I was a big loser. But ever since I've been in, I will say this: ever since I started trading Bitcoin in 2013, I've traded very profitably every year. In 2017, I was in the top 10 of the notational at BitMEX. 2018, it was going to be a close call because I was just treading water all year long. But you only need to catch one good move, and I caught that one from 64 down to 35, and that did my whole year. So
there you go. So that just goes to show that unless the fat lady sings, it's not over.
That's correct. Right? As long as you can play the game, you'll get lucky.
Exactly. So as a professional trader, it's perfectly normal to be in the negative for a few months and then redeem everything in one move.
Exactly. I never went negative, but I never went positive for 8 or 9 months, and it just kind of gets frustrating.
Right.
But I can tell you this too: if you can trade that long and not lose, you're gonna win, because that's a difficult feat in and of itself.
Yeah.
And so that's something to be striving for.
So you would recommend to not being afraid to lose a little, right? And if it's better to lose a little and continue looking for that one big move.
Yes. Somebody just called it to my attention that I started getting very bullish, and I was after the market broke through 35, and it took out the November lows in December. I said, this is probably the reversal and bottom. And I was never, because of the basis, I've always been, I never thought we'd break 3,000. I just didn't think it would happen. But I did take a sizable position anticipating the reversal and got stopped out.
Right.
And so, but I limited a loss. I think I made about 23 Bitcoin on the way down. And then I put in a little bit more than I wanted to risk. I think I lost 5.5 Bitcoin on that. But I reversed. And when the market reversed, I just stepped back in. And the trading account now, I just started just to show people how it's done. I opened with two Bitcoin, and it's over 22 Bitcoin today.
So that's just your trading alone. That's never mind the investment strategy that you've been employing.
Yeah, and I'm just investing. I'm doing it in a small way to show people. I mean, I've already made my bones, and I don't need to be doing this. But I do like teaching, and I'm a big believer in Bitcoin. But before we go on, Christus, I want to introduce people to you and how I got to know you. And actually, it was a mutual friend of ours, Asos Duarte, who I know he helps with Coinbase on the seminars, but he's a really nice young man.
Very nice.
And he sent me a tweet or a private tweet. He says, you know, you need to look at this guy. He's got some really good information. He's very careful, and he's saying a lot of the same things you say. And then he did one on, you did that article that he sent me, the one that you did with dollar cost averaging on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
And what you did is you just added the Trace Meyer multiple to that. Will you explain to the audience what is the Trace
Yeah,
Meyer
sure.
multiple?
Like it's um, uh, Trace Mayer multiple is developed by Trace Mayer. Everybody knows Trace Mayer, and what he did, he used.
Well, not everybody. Say who Trace Mayer is.
Trace Mayer is an investor in Kraken. He's been around for from the beginning of Bitcoin, early investor in Bitcoin, and a formidable figure in Bitcoin community in general. So we have him developing this indicator, just basically with the idea to check at what point the price is historically, right? At what percentage of the time it was higher than this price. So it's a very simple model, uses standard deviation, and as a result, what we can get with playing around a little bit, because what I did is I just didn't plot it, at random. I played with it. I looked to fit the Bitcoin cycles, right? So I tweaked it a little bit, changed some settings, and then suddenly I saw a very nice pattern emerging, right? So you have working like a clockwork. It's very accurate, and pinpointing the very bottom of the Bitcoin market, right, to such a degree that it's a lot of predicting power there, right? And it gives it thresholds, and you can see the period of accumulation respecting those thresholds. And then as soon as we hit the bull market, it shoots out of them and it never comes back, right? And obviously comes back into the next bear market. So it works very nicely. And I know it's a simple thing, it's nothing fancy, but if you tweak the settings around, it catches the pattern of how Bitcoin moves, and it times your bottoms very, very well.
Well, now I'm constantly asked because a lot of people see the simple dollar averaging chart that I publish regularly and say this is where you jump into Bitcoin, and people really, even looking at that, they have a hard time pulling the trigger.
Yes.
And
So
what I've done is what the chart that I start, if you notice, I always start at the peak. So it's assuming that you have the very worst time. And people still ask me, well, when should I do it? They're saying, well, the market's going to break 3,000. I'll buy it all I can when it's at 1,500 or whatever. And what I to say is this: nobody knows. I don't know where the price is going, and I'm a good trader because I've come to realize that I don't know. Okay, if I do measure risk.
You trade based
I
on the fact
trade.
that
I
you
trade.
don't
I
know.
find a situation that looks very favorable, and then I trade. But I don't know if it's how the reward is going to be. And we're going to get into that later. But let's start with the dollar averaging because that keeps it simple. So what I recommend to people is the simplest way to do it is if you start that dollar averaging today. Now, obviously, the market's at over 5,000. It's not at 3,300 or 3,300 anymore. It's at 5,100. But think of it this way: if you have been holding back and you're going to start today, assume that you started at the very worst time at the peak and buy that amount, which would be about $8,000 today. Buy $8,000 worth of Bitcoin. You're going to wind out with, if you look at that chart, about 1.6 Bitcoin instead of 1.3. So you're going to be that much more ahead. And now start buying $500 every month.
So what Ugly is saying is this strategy is very, very simple, very, very basic. Anyone can do it. And if you have a market that's continuously trending like Bitcoin over a longer period of time, say 10 years, you will win. Right? And Bitcoin that trend is going to continue.
And I like the Mayer multiple, and maybe you want to buy more at that time, but I do see a problem with that. Now, I'll throw this up to you. Maybe you can address it. But the problem that I see with it is, yes, you do real well, but what happens with Bitcoin when it's in that Mayer multiple, then it goes to a new level, and you're not. So if you don't buy it going out of the Mayer multiple, you miss out too. So that's the hard part. And right now, I mean, the Mayer multiple has been saying buy. I think when did the Mayer multiple, was it effective when we were at 6? Was it was, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so you should have been accumulating at 6, 7, 6, and you bought it at
I
4 and
believe right now it's sitting somewhere between 5 and 6.
oh, so
No, actually,
it's
right
out
now
of it now.
is a
It's almost
5,200. That's the top.
oh, so it's right at the Mayer multiple right
yeah.
now. Okay, so uh, that I mean, let's say that's the only problem I see with that's kind of a hindsight analysis that may or may not be valid, because if we shoot into another hyperwave, then you're going to miss out because you didn't accumulate. So
Right.
that's why the way I would recommend, rather than even the Trace Mayer multiple principle, is go ahead. Anything you buy now is better than the worst timing. Okay, and we know that the worst timing works.
Hmm.
So I think it's relatively safe to make your initial investment and then dollar cost average.
Okay, so to summarize, if you're looking to invest long term, really long term, right, and you don't really want to learn any skills or anything, and you want to use the most basic nuts and bolts technique, and that would be buying some Bitcoin every month
Yes.
at about $500
Yeah.
a month. But you got to really look long term, right? Because you can't just look at what's happening within 2 years even. You got
Right.
to look at like 10 years, right?
Right.
With the Mayer multiple, we can shrink it down. Now we have a little bit some strategy involvement. You need to do the math. You can't just blindly do
Right.
that. And with that, what we get the benefit of that is that when the market is cycling like this, we are timing the tops and the bottoms as it goes up.
Now, one thing that I haven't addressed, and I'll be doing, because it's really, I don't think it's time to be doing it, but that is an exit strategy. And I've always I have exited. I mean, you don't want to be. I mean, I know a lot of hardcore hodlers that they held and they held and they held, and they never sold anything all the way up, and now it's down, and they say, "Oh, I wish I would have sold."
Right.
Exactly. So,
the Mayer multiple showed us that, like screaming, giving us exact same what happened in the last one.
well, one thing that you need is you need to have somebody balance you. Okay, now I don't like to sell Bitcoin. I don't like to give it to anybody. But the thing that I have that balances me is I have a wife and a family.
Oh yeah, that's a
And and they see things a lot different than I see them. So
but
when they
tell that story because it worked out.
oh yes,
Yeah.
my wife.
See what's so fascinating about this is that
Mm.
it was very rational financial decision at the same time fun one, right? There was a perfect balance
Exactly.
right there.
Yeah, my wife wanted a Raptor, a brand new. So this came out. You could buy them in Mexico for 10 or 15,000 cheaper than you could in the U.S. for some reason. And the peso was real strong. Bitcoin was, I don't know, 14, 15,000. So she bought a new Raptor. Well, the Raptor's kind of too big to drive around everywhere, so she needed a little Mercedes too. So that we followed up with a little Mercedes. And so that's what I came up with, an article that said, Lambos is a store of value.
Yeah.
And if you bought your Lambo when Bitcoin was at 17,000 or 15 or whatever, and then you held on to that Lambo for a year, it only cost you 13 Bitcoin for that Lambo, and you could sell it for 47 Bitcoin.
Right.
Well, that's not a bad investment.
Yeah, that's perfect balance between delayed gratification and enjoying life.
Exactly. You have to
win
do.
win in there.
You have to do that. You have to also enjoy life. It's not just about making money.
Right.
And so those things are important.
And you're probably like bored driving that Lambo within 2 years, and you want to sell it anyway.
Exactly. Well, that's what she did. She had the Ford Raptor, and she wanted to get some more equipment.
And
Incidentally, my wife made this beautiful T-shirt, and I didn't show them the back. She's actually got an image. You guys will be this ugly old goat on the back of my shirt.
Looking like
and my subscribers will be getting some swag, either a hat or a shirt from us. But hey, if you subscribe and you don't put down your address, you don't get any swag. So it's fine if you want your privacy and don't want me to have your address. But if you want me to send you some free swag now and again, you got to put your address down there so we can mail it to you.
Alrighty. So to summarize, what we do is for more technical people out there, what we do is essentially dollar cost averages within the range of our Mayer multiple band.
Right. We know when it's down to the Mayer multiple, you might want to be buying 2 or 3 times
Yeah.
what you do when, and you just buy less as it's going up.
So even right now, Bitcoin is 5,000, and if you this month about you decide to buy some Bitcoin, you would buy it because it's still within the Mayer multiple. It was still in accumulation phase.
Right. And I don't know that I say not buy it. I think maybe if you're going to use that kind of a principle, just weigh it heavier here and lighter here, because we don't know when this thing could just take off and keep going to nobody thought it was going to go to $20,000 in 2017.
Right.
Some people were protecting 6 or 7,000, and then you had these harebrained people that were talking about $1 million and all that. But practically speaking, it surprised a lot of us, that it went up there, especially because, it was dragged up there on some lousy fundamentals due to the altcoin market and the ICOs.
Right.
But, well, let's move on to this other topic that I know we both want to talk about, and that's I wrote an article about risk-reward ratio.
All right.
And how it's a canard. It's a widely held false belief. And what inspired me is Tone Vays would always mention, and I agreed with him completely, and I knew exactly where he was coming from. So I wrote about it. This is why Tone Vays, believes that he doesn't hold to the risk-reward ratio. And basically it's because you can control and measure your risk. You really don't know what the reward is. For example, I've been bullish on Bitcoin, ever since December, but I don't know where it's going. And now that we've had the pop, it's possible. Now I think we could go below 3,000. I doubt that we will. I think this is a more substantial move than most people think. But before I was confident it wasn't going to go 3,000. Now we could go up and come back down and take and clean everybody's whistle.
Because you look at the market and then you look at what is this next step that is going to be. You're not drawing too many steps ahead. And this is where I don't like when people drawing the story of what's going to happen. That's not how it's going to play out, almost certainly. But what you can do with what you're saying is whenever the price is showing you something, then listen to it. Right, and
follow the trend. There's no. I tell people there's no reason to be bearish right now. It may turn around fine, but hey, if you should be long and have a nice profit and a nice cushion, and you can, you can be trading against the box and trimming and so forth. But you want to keep. There's no reason to think this market's going down now, and now it may, but I don't. Nobody knows, and the way I measure trends, it's going to be hard to get back down. We took out we made a very significant move on the first day or two of April when we went through the monthly high and the quarterly high, and when we did that, it just smashed. And
so risk reward, like what can you summarize the point of that? Like what is the point?
Well, the point is that people will say, well, I have this trade and I'm putting it on, here's the risk. The other thing I don't do is I don't have targets. And that's, I know you kind of believe in Fibonacci's, and I find those interesting, but I've studied all this stuff, and about 85% I just throw away. And Fibonacci's is one of those that, I've kind of thrown it away. I mean, it's interesting, but I'm not a big believer in them. And because I don't think there's points, and I don't think there's projections, so I don't project. But I do think you want to learn to ride a trend as high as you go, because you don't know. And that's the key. For so many people missed that move. You remember, we went from 7,000 to 20,000 in 2 weeks. Well, unless you were a hodler, you missed out.
So basically, this is a very interesting point, because you are more execution and risk management focused, right? That's your talent. That's what
the success for trading. There's 4 secrets to success. And the number 1 secret is money management. And the number 2 is money management.
Okay.
And the number 3 is money management. And if you don't have that in your head clear, there's one more that you missed. if you think, well, that's old hat ugly, I know that. No, it's not. You got to remind yourself every day. It's money management, because you make that mistake once, you're wiped out.
Yeah.
It's the only
So
fatal mistake you can make.
yeah, absolutely. So that's like you can just go with that, and that is plenty to be successful.
Yeah, and I noticed you made a distinction. You call it. You don't call it risk reward. You made a distinction. You called it profit loss ratio, which I like that. That's fine. I think where
So
we might disagree a little
so
bit. Yeah, go ahead.
here's what I like we see things different.
Okay.
I think that there's a lot to having a concept of profit loss and risk reward, right?
Mhm.
And it's not correct. It's absolutely not correct, because you don't know what the target is going to be, right? So it can be open-ended. Why, if the trend just keeps going, why not continue, right? I totally get that point. So in that point, there's no risk reward, right? Doesn't exist. But what we're really doing is we're saying that there is risk reward, except that the reward is open-ended. But
Right.
you're
We
not going
don't know.
to take a trade
And
that
the
is
other thing
risking
is
more
too,
than
I can't control that reward. I can control the risk. I have
exactly.
no control over now. I think where we
But
may are a little different. You think you can estimate the reward, through the Fibonacci numbers or other different things, and I just have never found that I've been or found any way that that can be done. I mean,
well, like it can be done, and if you look back and if you go through Fibonacci, every single retracement, every single bounce that we had in the bear market was exactly at 0.618.
okay. What I'm saying is, you don't need that to be a successful trader.
No, I agree.
That's the
Because
key, and
but
that's a different.
here's the marriage of two worlds,
Hmm.
right? Because I think that, like, if what I have cooking over here and what you cooking over there, I think it could even supercharge whatever
Oh,
you
I
have
agree.
right now.
And now I'm going to go into how I was fascinated by this guy, because after uh, I can't pronounce his name.
Zezo?
Zazo, yeah,
Yeah.
Zazo Duarte. After he turned me on to him, I started watching his video, and then he did this thing on fractals and what's like that Malabot, and I'm fascinated by all that principle. And then he made this comment. Now, after I show you this, you're never going to look at a chart again the same way. And I thought, this isn't my first rodeo. I've been around the block. I've read all, I know all this. I've read all the books. I said, no, that ain't going to happen.
Hmm.
And then he started drawing these Y's and these H's, and I go, oh my! I was just fascinated. And he was right. I don't look at the
It
chart the
sticks
same
out,
way
right?
anymore. It just
It
and
pops right up.
this is what this guy has come up with that I don't think can be ignored, because it's something that even an ugly old goat can understand. It's
Right.
something we can visualize. We don't have to do, we don't need to know calculus or statistics or any of this other stuff, but it's a dance.
Yeah, it is a dance. It's more like art. But
It
there is
is
some
an art.
science
It's
there to
not a
it as well.
science.
But it's, yeah, if you go all science, you're gonna be very, very good at predicting when you're right and when you're wrong, but still not profitable.
And I've seen guys that are really good at predicting the market, but they can't pull the trigger. They can't. They just don't have it in them to do it.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Let's talk about this, about this not having in them to do it, right? Because I think it's very important to understand is like what makes a profitable trader. And the difference between profitable trader and non-profitable trader is that there's a paradigm shift within themselves, right?
Yes.
So somewhere deep down, there's a behavioral shift, and it's a belief shift too, right? Because it's not about just like some sort of like a cortex understanding of thing, right? Like right now, you can explain the audience in the perfect way, and then very few will make a difference, because just understanding that, it does not mean you're going to change your behavior.
The way I put it is, I'm here to teach the people that have ears to hear.
Right.
If you if you don't have ears to hear what I'm talking about, you're never going to get it anyway.
Yeah.
And there's nothing difficult about it, and yet it's the hardest thing in the world, because it is a matter of changing the way you think and changing the behavior, and it's not about being right or wrong. Like I say, you don't have to be right in the market. Which I'm going to go into another point. You were talking. I was listening to your other video. I was going to question you on this one because you seem to think you need to be right 50% or more of the time. I don't think so. I think as long as you have the right principles, 30% you're going to make out just fine. And
Well, what I meant by that is that there's a first paradigm, right? And the first paradigm goes like, well, try to hit it as many right times as you can, right? And you're pushing with that 80%. And what you do there, that's the first paradigm, right? And so you play that game, but there's no winning in that game, right? So now the second paradigm is that, oh, wait a second, it's not about having a higher percentage. And then what you realize is like, oh, it's actually about trying to get about 50% and getting those times that that you have 50% chance to lose a little but gain a lot.
well,
And it's
yes,
timing those.
it's
That's
and it's the way I've always been. You got to catch the big move, okay? And the reason, look, Bitcoin's the big move. That's why you dollar cost average.
Mhm.
That's where you're not going to go wrong. That's your basis. Now, if you want to enhance on that and perform on that, learn trading,
Mhm.
but only never risk more than a small portion of your hodl.
Right.
You know, if you have 10 Bitcoin, you don't want to risk more than about a half a Bitcoin. Okay. And you can consistently, I know people can't believe this, but you can take, I just have a model account that I took 2 Bitcoin in October and turned it into 22. I had 2 Bitcoin in February, and then it's a 20. You do
Yes,
that.
exactly.
Okay. You take $1,000.
Mhm.
Okay. And you multiply that 11 times and you're a millionaire. Just
Yes.
11 times. I've done it twice now just to demonstrate on a small scale.
So what you're saying, if it works what you do, you don't need a lot to scale it, right? So
Right. And
so it's very logic, of course. Like let's say you have $4,000, right, to spare for trading, right? And that's just like a small fraction of, let's say, what that I have, instead of putting all that, So let's say I put 4,000. If I end up being really good at it and I get the points, therefore $4,000 is going to be more than enough
that
of
$4,000 can be turned into 400,000.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the story and the difference between this ugly old goat and how I was as a youngster. And that's why these, I kind of feel I can kind of see more of these millionaires and billionaires. But when I was a young man, just started out in the commodities market, uh, my father opened an account for trading commodity futures. And I was a youngster, and of course, I knew it all. And I clearly showed it because I think it was in 1973, and the account was open in April, first week of April. And by the middle of June, that account was up to $350,000.
There you go.
So I had it figured out that by September, I would be a millionaire. By the end of the year, I was done. I'd be retired.
Yeah, so it's Warren
But
Buffett
what
said.
happened? By September, I'd lost it all. And that's what you have to go through. That's what you have to experience.
Right, right.
And so right now I took this to Bitcoin and we run it into 20. So my whole thing is I don't want to give any of it back, as little as possible, and yet I want to keep the trend.
Yes. To explain a little bit more to the audience, the principle behind it is that start small. If you're good, you're gonna become big.
You don't
And then
need.
once you're big, you go back to small and then do that all over again.
Okay, most small traders stay small traders. A few small traders become large traders. Okay, most large traders, by far, most large traders become small traders.
Voluntarily. That's the key
And
point.
but then the smart large traders choose on their own free will to become a small trader again.
So basically, what the plan is that go in small, become big, take that out, invest somewhere else, or enjoy life. Start small again.
I got out of prison
because you reduce the chances of losing it all.
I got out of prison in 2002, and I had nothing except a car that didn't work that my son had that was more of a liability, and I had his apartment to live in because he was traveling on his job. And selling Dish Network. And of course, I'm good at sales. So within the first month, I was the top guy, and I
So you had some
I
principles
made,
behind your
yeah,
head that
I made about $5,000, $6,000 that month, but the guy stiffed me. He paid. I got stiffed for $4,000. Well, what could I do? So it's overcoming that, and just one thing, and you build your business. That's you start the same way with businesses. I found out that I was at seminars, not seminars, but I had a little booths, and I'd knock on doors, and at night I'd phone people, and then I found a little thing called an auto dialer, where it would call 3 or 4 people at once, and wow, that made my production go way up. Then I found out I could deliver automated messages. That really made my production go up, and before long, I was selling Dish Network all over the country, and I had made some of the um, authorized dealers, the top Dish Networks. A lot of them became top Dish Network dealers because of what I was doing.
yeah.
And so that's one principle, that you can follow in life. You start small. You don't start big.
Right, right. It's because it boils down to the behavioral principle, because it's all behavior based, right? If you have that construct in your mind, you can start from nothing and you will end up being successful. It's
Right.
what's in your mind that counts, right?
Right.
And then if you don't have that, then you can have big business and go bankrupt, right? Is everything is right there. So you got to work on the on
Yeah.
a,
And the
on a,
way I like it, what you
yeah.
said in one of your videos, is that winners make small mistakes, losers make big mistakes.
Yes.
And immediately one of the first article that I did on Medium, and I love writing, and I'm so glad I found Medium. But the very first article I did, I'd just gotten blown out of the market. I was kind of, in the dumps about it because I couldn't figure out what the market. And so I wrote "Blowing Out of the Market with a Smile." And if you can, go back and read that, because that's where I talk about the number one principle is money management.
Right.
If you're trading and you just took a loss, could be a substantial one, and you can't laugh about it, you're over trading.
Yeah.
It's that
Like
simple.
that's the psychological aspect of that, because it's almost fearless, and without having, it almost goes to spiritual level, because you cannot be attached to the outcome. You have to be so zen about it, right? And that's what then you'll be able to have these little stop losses, and go through this little like pain that you have, like you don't want to rip that band-aid off, right? And the metaphor that I use is that it's just like judo. When I started, when I did it when I was a kid, and then came back later, years later. And so when I went back, what I did, I went and trained with the best, right? The best judokas that I could find. And of course, what happened? I would get my ass whooped every time I would go, right? So
But that helped you.
there's
That didn't
losses,
hurt
there's
you, did
losses,
it?
yeah, yeah. So there was losses, there's losses, and there were fewer losses, and there were wins, and then it changed, and eventually I had more wins than losses, you know. So it's like uh, but if you're not willing to take those little hits, little punches, and like not necessarily blow
Well,
it with a smile, that's like an
yeah, it's
extreme.
very,
But if you would
very,
just be able to just take these little
yeah.
punches on the way, you're gonna get that successful one, and is gonna make up for all these punches. You can be beat up and everything, but then you're standing there with the trophy.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very, uh, yeah. It's. Look, guys, you can do this. It's not that hard, and you don't have to be a rocket scientist. It is. I don't call it spiritual or Zen. I think it's very practical, but you do have to overcome poor habits, and you just, if you've got the bad habits, you just, and you have to have the ability to stop trading completely. If you don't have that, if you're, a lot of traders are addicted to the game,
Yeah.
and they really aren't in it, for they just want to play the game, and they're not in it for the money. And
they're in there for the dopamine.
that's what it
that's
is.
a hobby.
And if you're doing that way, well, nobody can help you. I can't
Yeah.
help you trade.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so that's a very interesting point, because it boils down to the behavior, right? Like maybe secretly though you don't even want to be financially successful. Maybe you just want to enjoy that dopamine rush, right? So there's something there. So like you gotta look inside and figure out what is happening in that dome, before
Tell me a little bit more about your Y's and H's and how you came across that. And is it possible today that you can put on a sample and we can show them people what you're talking? I mean, you made it very clear on your video, and it, like I say,
So what I'm gonna
it's
do?
fascinated me because it's genuinely a new way, easy way of looking at the market that, to the best of my knowledge, nobody's ever pointed it out before. And
Well,
it just holds up very, very well.
yeah. So what Ugly is talking about is essentially this concept. Like this is where I think um I come from. Like Ugly is amazing at execution, and this I had a lot to learn, from you still. But I go from the understanding the universe point of view, right? And there's such things as there's a code of the universe, right? Everything moves, everything forms in a certain like pattern, and it's observable everywhere. And then if that doesn't blow your mind, I don't know what can. And you can see that these Fibonacci ratios, and you see the like a snowflakes, right? You have a fractal of like a little thing representing the bigger thing in the exact same way. Like that's not DNA doing this. There's nothing intelligent behind it, but it seems following the code, right? So everything in the universe, I think, it comes from like chaos and order. There's a lot of chaos going on, but when the order comes in, it's done in a specific way. Whatever subject you take, you take DNA, you take leaves, for example, you take um, um like rivers deviate exactly like 1.272 Fibonacci deviation,
Oh, really?
yeah, naturally,
That's cool.
yeah. So and the same thing with the trees and everything. So what we see, tree is a manifestation, and it grows in a way based on these rules, these universal rules that the everything needs to follow, right? So the math can never be wrong, and that's true, right? Because it's the math figuring out the code of the universe, and then even DNA is a subject to that, right? And that goes all the way to human behavior, because it's a natural phenomenon. Like market is a natural phenomenon. It's not man-made phenomenon. We're not even man-made. Like everything boils down to from that most you know from that code, and we're subject to that. So we can observe that.
Well,
See the
Genesis
cycles
talks about, and I don't know much about Zen, but I will say this. In Genesis, it says, that we were created in the image of God. And so we're not created with a blank mind. We have the ability to reason.
Absolutely.
And that's what sets us apart from all the rest of creation. And of course, I think it's very important because the Lord also instructs us, don't worship any of these things that I've made. Worship me alone. I'm a very jealous God.
Right.
So I'm not a big one on Zen, but I do think that I do think that the Lord is sovereign and is in control.
Yeah, there's something there that is always takes the precedence over everything else.
Yes.
So it's something. So there, like it's very fascinating that trading brings you down into understanding, how the universe works, right? So trading can be very, very enjoyable experience, and very, if you do it right, if you don't get stuck with the chart and but just look deeper, what is happening,
Right.
what are you seeing there?
And what I want to emphasize, at least to my audience, is that why I think Gastudis should be listened to is he's truly come up with something new and unique, and that comes along very rarely. Now, another one that did that is Tyler Jenks with his hyperwave principle. Now, I've been a student of all Elliott. Elliott Wave. I've done all that stuff, but when I saw Tyler Jenks' proposition, his theory, I immediately picked up on it, and then we met and we talked privately, and I asked him, you must have read Ted Warren, and he says, yeah, I have. I said, this is based on Ted Warren. He says, yeah, it is. And so, if you haven't read Ted Warren, this guy had a 6th grade education. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. Sometimes you're better off not to be, but he he talked about investigators, and he thought the markets were manipulated. I'm not of that school,
Hmm.
but he did have the idea of accumulation came in quiet markets.
Hmm.
That's why I was never, uh, you know, I love the quiet markets. When people say, "Well, this market isn't interesting," well, I thought Bitcoin was real interesting at 3,500. I
Right.
thought, yeah, this is interesting because it's no one else is interested in it, and I think the right people are buying. So that's where his idea of the hyperwave comes into, and I
Hmm.
think I think that and the idea that you've done with these Y's and H's, because I've never looked at a chart that way,
Hmm.
and it's fascinating now in hindsight. I'll be writing about some of the things I look at. I look at some uh, much more simpler things. But this is more of a dance. It's a flow, and it's like in that same way. It's the same thing as with the hyperwave.
So what Tyler and I are doing, we are observing the universe and finding that model, the pattern that is existing right now. It's
Right.
continually evolving, but it's existing right now.
And
And he did it with the large cycles,
yes,
and I think I did it with
and the
with the
fundamental
small
thing
fractals.
about Bitcoin is that it is definitely the new asset class, a new technology, and possibly the new money. And I am also of the agreement it's either going to be Bitcoin or it's going to be gold. It's not going to be anything else. It's not going to be any of these alts.
Let's get into this in a second. So to finish off, so for the audience listening, about these fractals and what those H and Y fractals are and how it ties into to all the code of universe and everything. Basically, these little patterns occur like I always say. I'm trying to think of an apple, right? And there's a tree and there's apples growing on the tree, and then you have apples looking kind of the same, but they all have their unique character, and that's what the fractal is, right? It's like it will always follow certain laws, but it will be different on the way. That's why that unpredictability is always there. We cannot, predict how the apple is, if it's going to have a dent over here or not, but we can predict how it's going to look like in general, right? And that's what you see with the fractals, because everyone like dancing, right, being involved in the market, like if whether somebody's manipulating, whether there's a professional trade, whatever's happening with the market, it leaves the footprint, it leaves the pattern, and it always like changes over time. So it's like you have a tree and it has certain leaves. Once you figure out how the leaf is formed, then you know how the other leaves are being formed, right? And then that goes away because we had like 80s, 90s Bill Williams fractals, right? And it worked perfect for quite some time. And then, that stopped. So now we have different fractals coming in. I think every so often you'll find these patterns that are like there's a structure. And if you find them, I think then you can know how the leaf is going to be looking on that particular tree for the time being. And
Yeah,
then
what Castus is saying is the dance changes from time to time.
right.
It's just like,
If you're
the
looking for the
disco
code of the
dancing. You had the
dance.
twist in the 60s and the disco dancing, I don't know, in the 70s. I don't know what it was.
Absolutely. Isn't it interesting, right?
Yeah.
The era
I mean, it was
changes.
still a dance,
Yeah, it's still
but
a
it was a
dance,
little different style,
different style, exactly. And I think the style right now is H and Y's. I think this is the style. Before it used to be these V's, Bill Williams, fractals, these V's, and I think now we have H's and Y's. I think that's the code right now in trading.
Hmm.
And once if people apply it and have a lot of success from it, it's going to change again, and we're going to have a different pressure.
I agree, and to give you on any new thing, you have to be real careful because as soon as I saw, I mean, we put it on the big screen. I said, "Now this can," and when I looked at it, I was just glued to it. I said, "Wow, he's right. There's H's and Y's all over this thing,"
Exactly.
and I watched that just when the market was at 41.90, and I was pretty well. I didn't was long. I was going to scale out sell, after we hit about 43, and then but it said, "Oh no, we look like we're at the top of the Y." So I started selling before the breakout.
Uh-huh.
40.90 and
Uh-huh.
41.90, 42.02, and then I sold a little bit more than I would have.
There was different
But
kettle of
but
fish.
but
So
so you can't just look at. He's really got a great idea, but you can't just take. It's like getting a new toy. If you get, I just bought a new motorcycle today. Well, I don't just jump on that thing and see how fast it'll go.
Yes,
You got to take it for a few test rides and see what it can do before.
absolutely. But let me tell you what happened. If you zoom out, there was another fractal being drawn, right? That
Yeah.
was the big fractal.
Oh, I know the big fractal. That was one I was seeing all along.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
never
yeah,
knew
yeah,
fractals. I was waiting for. I was playing for the big
but it
one.
still follows
Right,
everything, you
and
know?
that's why I say there's no reason I can be bearish because we had when we took out that quarterly high and the monthly high and the weekly high all on the same. That's it.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know
That shouldn't work
and
out for me either.
now we take it. Frankly, I mean, I don't make predictions, but I will be surprised if we don't double in price. I kind of think I don't like to make predictions, but I think kind of the minimum is going to be
What do you
7,600
mean? In what
because
sense?
then we've trapped so many people now. If they sold out, what are they going to do? And if we run back over 6,000, you know,
Yeah, yeah. So would you expect this now because of this
well, you
little
should be
pump?
long, and you just should be following it up with a stop right now. You can follow the first. I bought the first dip when it took out the previous week's low. I added to it. It's probably going to shoot up quite a bit higher, and then take out and scare everybody to dip. But that first, you can probably buy that dip too. Then it'll make a new. Then after that, who knows? But
Right.
and it could end like I say. I didn't know. It was very possible we could have never gotten out of that 41. I could have stopped at 42. That's why that was the threshold.
I say that there's a universe out there that the price went down and everybody just is surprised.
The what? Say?
There's a universe out there that
Uh-huh.
the price did go down and everyone is just as surprised.
I mean, you think that somewhere
Multi-universes,
else it
like
happened
if
just
you
the opposite?
subscribe to the
Oh, come
multiverse
on.
theory. Yeah, because like everything that ever happened, it happened millions of times with just different slight version of that. That's the multiverse theory. So I said that there's
Yeah,
probably
I don't know. I don't
a
know.
universe that happened and everyone is.
There's a lot. I do you remember? You might be too young for this, but were you in the? Do you remember the Tylenol man?
I don't know, man.
Yeah, that he was accused of lacing Tylenol with poison. And okay, well, I won't. I'll tell that story another time. But he was my cellmate for a while. I got some good stories on that one.
Hmm.
Well, no, I'll tell a little bit. He was nasty, scrunchy, and anyway, brilliant. He hated God. He just shook his head, and but his whole desire was he wanted eternal life. And as soon as he got out of prison, he was going to his friends at MIT and download his brain so he could get eternal life. Now, this was back in the 1990s, and I
Mm.
thought this guy is crazy. And then I get out, and it's not. This is what people are trying to do. They're trying to create their own, uh, you know, eternal life.
Oh
And
yeah.
my
I mean the virtual reality. Have
yeah,
you tried
that's
virtual reality
so.
gaming?
Huh?
Have you tried virtual reality gaming like these headsets? Virtual
Yeah, I do
reality.
that every day.
Yeah, that's true. Me too. Like
No, I
I
don't.
like this game.
You're right. No, I understand, but no, I just, it, I can't. I don't go to that place. I just don't. I think we're making a mistake on that road. I think that the Bitcoin standard is getting us on the right road because it is
Mm.
giving us a much different perspective. But there's certainly going to be um, a huge. I mean, I can't believe I was a sound money advocate, in the 70s, and we were virtually all alone. And
Mm.
now, Austrian School of Economics is well accepted and well known, particularly in the Bitcoin community. And that
Hmm.
just blew my mind because I never thought that would have been
Yeah.
possible when I was your age, for
Yeah.
example.
I think Bitcoin is so impactful that I think is going to change humans. I think we are going to be forced to evolve into the second stage, into the next stage, whatever that is, because I think we're not going to have such thing as scarcity, because scarcity is artificial. It's man-made. There's no such thing as scarcity as long as the sun is burning, right? That's what's really going on. So if we get rid of the scarcity mentality in everyone, including everybody who created like a Federal Reserve and everything. Because why did they do it? Because out of fear that they're going to lose it sometime in the future. So it was like greed took over, and they like 70, 80 years old and thinking how to control the world. Like like there's no rationale behind it, right? And that leads to hundreds of years of suffering. Few guys came up with that decision and then lead 100 years of suffering.
Well,
And
I don't think we're going to evolve for the better. We haven't yet. I
well,
mean,
let me
we've
give
in
an
the last
example of
century we
what I
killed
mean.
this last century more. We've killed more people through war and as you know, in communism
Right,
and
but we changed. That make us evolve, right? There
and
were
how
people, we have like
did we kill
hippies
babies
and 60s and
instead? I don't know how we've really changed
um,
it
you
for the
know,
better.
and then suddenly, like, we look completely different at the world how we looked before. Of course, some structures inside us are the same, but there's many things that we look completely different than the way we looked before.
Okay,
And
I guess the difference. I don't look. My hope is not with mankind. I don't. If our hope depends on us, you know, we're lost.
uh,
But I'm a
well,
Christian, and
that's where the technology
and so
comes in,
that
and then
that's my perspective.
uh, that's where the technology comes in and could possibly save us. Is because this is where, like, what I'm
Ah,
trying to say is that
but
Bitcoin is
the
the effect that the
technology.
Bitcoin is going to have on humans is great. Let me give you an example. Andreas Antonopoulos, right? Was so-called BitChain, by Roger Ver,
Right.
right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
right. So
yeah.
everybody knows that story. And then look what happened. Like, people just suddenly started donating to
Oh
him, right?
yeah.
It
No,
made
that's
him millionaire
wonderful.
overnight. So do you see like the impact that people have? The generosity starts
No,
taking over.
I agree that, but also the very worst people are in Bitcoin. So and we know each other. So
But let me say like the worst people in Bitcoin, right? Like how much how where we get like you
let
know
me tell you, it's
we,
the same story. I had the okay. Let me tell you, when I was in prison, I saw the most generous, kindest acts
hmm
I've ever seen,
hmm
and the most hideous and despicable acts.
hmm
Okay, I have literally seen, men that have nothing give me everything that they have.
hmm
Well, what more can be done?
hmm So
And
you think
let me
it's
explain another way. But between what we have between science and our morality. Okay, science brought us the guillotine. Okay, technology brought us the guillotine, but it did not give us who to kill.
hmm,
And so that's the difference. Technology is not the answer. Technology can be useful. It can make things more efficient, but it can you know build electrical plants or it can build gas chambers. Technology is simple. It's another tool. It's not a solution. It's just not a solution. It's a wonderful tool, just like a gun is a wonderful thing
but would you say
in
that
the right hands.
internet changed us?
Well, certainly has made us more ingrown. I would say yes. It'll be interesting to see how it changes in the long run. Yeah, I mean,
hmm
all you have to do is walk to a mall or a restaurant and see how many people are looking at their cell phones.
I say if Bitcoin is successful, it's going to be just as impactful. Because I see the world where people are going to be not scared of losing the money that they have because
Right,
they don't even have the control
right,
over it,
and that's
right?
what I'm hoping to do. We need to start building revenue streams for people that believe in Bitcoin, and so I do have a following on my Medium, and now we've built the website, and people are paying for my subscription. So we're building on the back end of that a little referral code, so that if you like my work, if you want to get my regular newsletters or just support the work or get some discounts and stuff, you can get a lifetime subscription,
hmm
and that's my life, not your life.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, and
So,
those
and
are,
that's
I think
point one, and
those
then
things
the
are going to
lifetime
come. Go
subscription.
ahead.
So that's 0.1 Bitcoin lifetime subscription to all your intakes in the market and pretty much like observation of your brain.
Right, and but actually it's half price for that now through the end of April, and hopefully before the end of April we'll have the referral code in there too, so you'll be able to refer people and they'll be able to get it for half price. Again, it's a lifetime subscription. Hey, I don't need the money. I'm not doing this to get rich. I already got everything I possibly could ever want in life. Okay, I lost everything, and I've been blessed sevenfold. And I'm doing this because I love writing about Bitcoin. And I don't understand most and a lot of Bitcoin, but I know how to trade. Pardon?
I think this is what we share in common, because you want others to experience the same thing. It's coming not from the monetary gain anymore. It's coming from like it would be awesome if others would feel like that.
Yes. Yeah. But they need to understand the world that we live in, and the best way that I've been able to sell Bitcoin. I used to give away Bitcoin. I never do that anymore because that people, they lose it. They don't appreciate it. But I do just ask the one question. I say, what do you have that can't be confiscated? What do you have that can't be taken away? And Tyler Jenks was the one that came up with that number one quality of property of Bitcoin. And I said, yeah, that's it. And so when you ask somebody that, say, well, my house, no, they can take that. No, my car, no, they can take that. My family, they can take everything away from you. But that one thing they can't take is that Bitcoin, as long as you have the private key. So it's unconfiscatable. It's borderless.
But it's also a not perfect right now, but is a potential store of value. And I think this is the first store of value that we ever seen behaves in such way, because everything before in our monetary history, everything was basically liable to being printed, right? Just made out of thin air, right? Every single
I don't call it a store. I call it a speculation, but I think yes, it is a store of value. But I call it's really lousy cash, and sex is a store of value.
But what do you think of Lightning Network? Don't you think?
I know. I really don't. I don't comment on it because I need to sit down and absorb it because I don't get it, and I really don't understand it, and people keep on trying to explain it, and I'm either dense or have a blocked mind or something. So I don't want to say.
What do you think of the idea? Like, let's say it works, right? Like, so we can all agree that it works, right? It's still obviously being tested out, but it seems like it does work. So what do you see if we have something that works to essentially use Bitcoin to pay for coffee?
Okay, let me explain why the Lightning Network, why I'm not sold on it, or I don't know that it's really that innovative where we need to go to the next level. Okay. The reason being is that if for Bitcoin to be a store of value, one of my mentors was E.C. Harwood, and he wrote about the lost art of sound commercial banking. And basically, you can create purchasing media, non-inflationary purchasing media. And that's the difference between Bitcoin and the Bitcoin standard. Now, banking would be built on the Bitcoin standard. It doesn't necessarily represent Bitcoin. And that's what people, oh, you're talking about fractional reserve. Well, yes, but no, because the issuance of new money
is just a reserve. There's no fractional.
Well, it's based on the new goods. The money is only created for new goods that are being produced in the marketplace. If you're not producing, if you want to buy a house, new money's created. But if you have these hats that people are buying, incidentally, there's an ugly old goat Bitcoin hat. So and I have a fishing hat for you around here somewhere.
So basically,
here. This you might appreciate this one even better.
All right.
Look, this even has a tag. You could be on. What was that old TV show? There you go.
All right.
Yeah. What I'm saying, I mean, apparently, Lightning Network's more efficient and it's free, but it doesn't solve. F.A. Hayek, he was for free market money, but also free banking, free market banking.
Well, like what you see, the way you see Bitcoin, it seems to me is that like you look at it as a reserve, not fractional reserve, as what gold used to be to $1. Right?
Yes.
It was bank notes.
And
right?
gold was lousy cash. Nobody, gold coins did not circulate.
Well, let me ask you, like every single note represented Bitcoin, right? Like
no,
sorry, not Bitcoin, gold, right?
No, it didn't.
At first it did. That was the initial idea.
Well,
but then because you could make more of these banknotes and not necessarily have enough gold, then you created the problem.
What happened is the evolution. In other words, and there's all schools of, like Milton Friedman says, oh, you have to have an increased money supply. And he said it should be a fixed amount, 5%, or whatever his magic formula was. Well, banking, it's a market solution to that. And the market decides what the money supply is. Because as long as the bankers are doing a good job and not over lending, now if they lend a guy too much on a product that, let's say, if you're a banking buggy whips at the turn of the...
Well, you know that the U.S., I believe, was under Andrew Jackson out of debt completely, and they actually started, being completely credit-free society, right? And I have an argument that credit is evil. Like I have a few points to make, why it's so, but I think it's evil. And there's a few occasions where credit is okay, but then like you said, the natural market will take care of it. But there won't be a time where you can, let's say, print a bunch of money, give it to people, let them work, and then only then the value is created that represented.
No, we got it backwards now. We're creating the money with the promise we're going to produce something.
Yeah,
and that's your ICO market.
Yeah.
That's not the way it has to evolve. The way it has to evolve is that somebody's producing something the market wants. Now a bank can create, but he's as collateral. He has the new productive. He has those new products as his collateral for the money creation.
But now that we have something like Bitcoin potentially, right? Doesn't that eliminate the need for credit completely? Because now you can have a frugal and saving society.
Well, if you're in business, you need to have credit of some kind.
Yes, but then that credit will not be like from the actual tangible value behind it.
And I've talked a little bit about
tangible.
And I've talked a little bit about safety. I'd like to have a good conversation with Safety Amos about this sometime, because he's more or less your school. And what I do is I just pick up where we had the most evolved banking system ever, and that was under the gold standard and it was so evolved that the government nationalized it to the Federal Reserve. But that grew up through the marketplace.
The credit was real back then. It's very important to say that the credit was real.
Right, the credit was real. As they were producing all these new products coming in the marketplace, they would lend they would actually create maybe 50 or 70% of the value, knowing that they had a markup, and now they could pay. The manufacturer could pay all of his help, pay all of his suppliers, while the goods were in transit and going into the marketplace. And then as those notes, were brought back to the bank, they were retired. Okay, we don't have that anymore. All we have is money creation without any retirement.
So let me rephrase that then. Credit under fractional reserve system is evil, not necessarily credit.
Yes, if it's fractional, but under the gold standard, there was no fractional reserve, but it doesn't mean it wasn't 100% gold. The other school, and this is what I'm not a Rothbardian. I think Murray Rothbard was terrible when it came to economics. And I called him a gold socialist, and I got Milton Friedman's attention when I called him that, because he wanted to nationalize gold and impose everybody to use gold. But that's not how the market evolved. The market evolved. It's a gold standard, but it wasn't 100% gold standard. It was gold and everything else being produced. So it was 100% backed. And gold was just one of the things that you could redeem it for. You could also redeem it for a car. You could redeem it for a hat. You could redeem it for shoes. And so it was fully redeemable. But yeah, if there's a run on the gold, if everybody wanted gold at once, could be a problem. But
so you're saying that once we went off the gold standard,
right? And Right.
Yeah.
But what happened was if one, if one banker started to be distrusted, then everybody redeemed for his gold. And now he had no more
Yeah.
reserves. The same thing happens. It's run very similar to commodity exchanges.
I think that 50 to 100 years from now, we're going to look back at this time, and I really think that we're going to look back at fractional reserve as the, one of the biggest blunders in economy. I think we're gonna look back and say, well, we created in pretty much like an artificial slavery, or like you have these hamsters running in the wheel that never seem to get that apple,
Well,
And
I think it's the government intervention in the money supply that's the problem. I don't know. As far, and I wouldn't say it depends what you mean, but people would consider me believing in a fractional reserve.
It would still be a scam. That's just like, if you say something that it does not represent something, and you say that that's like a valid medium of exchange, then you're a scammer from the start.
That's the difference. There's gold, and there's the gold standard. The banking was based on the gold standard. It was not necessarily gold. So I hate the word fractional reserve, because it wasn't like 100%. If all the money and the banks circulated was brought to redeem gold, it couldn't have been done. But it could be redeemed for all the goods that they had in the marketplace.
I see. So you see that another value is the workforce. Well, of course.
No, it's people that produce. It's producers.
Yes, exactly. That's the
if you're not producing, there's no money creation. If I'm, then it's got to be a savings and loan operation, where if you're saving and you're not buying a car and I want to buy a car, I have to borrow the Bitcoin from you to buy the car and pay you back later.
Yeah, but then like that token of value sort of moves from one thing to another, because like you can say, okay, so there's that much work is worth that much gold, and that much gold that was that much work. Like but it has a balance. It has to have a balance.
The difference
when you
is
break
production.
the rules of that balance, that's when it derails, and then that's what happened, I think, and that's why this system is collapsing and it's not going to hold, and something new needs to come in and change that. It's a house of cards that's been built in, and I like what Ton Vince was talking about. That he said that every civilization, superpower runs into the problem in about 100 years, and right now was 1916 when they created Federal Reserve, and right now it's 2018, right?
Well,
so
it's long overdue.
Like believing like
it's long overdue, and we have all these entitlement programs.
Yes, there's something there that there's a feeling that there's going to be transition.
Oh yeah,
there's going to be
there is going to be a huge and the thing is that, to me, it's Bitcoin that's going to make the transition relatively peaceful.
Right.
Without Bitcoin, it would be total chaos.
Yes, absolutely. So
Bitcoin holders are going to be the future bankers and the future salt of the earth. And like I say, a lot of these ICOs, they use the word build it. Well, we need to hold it and build it. But they're talking about building on these ICOs. I say, no, what you do is you build in your own community. If you've made wealth in Bitcoin, then you need to make an investment back into where you live in your community.
I think there's a law that you're trying to make something out of like kind of nothing. There's a law of the universe that energy cannot be destroyed. It goes from one place to another, and balance will always be found. And that's what's going on right now. Even the balance of somebody's trying to fake that, right? So I don't think it's possible to such things. I don't think it's sustainable to fake the value, to fake the energy, right? I think that whenever you find the balance of that, I think that's when you're going to have the economy that works. I think the balance is very important. And speaking of Bitcoin and why Bitcoin has such power, and a lot of people asking, okay, where's the value of Bitcoin? I can't touch it, I can see it, I can touch gold, but yes, that is if you don't subscribe to the digital world, right? But if you subscribe to the digital world, what do we see there? Well, we see there that to make Bitcoin, you need time and energy, right? And that's the difference between a dollar or anything else, is that like if you want to make it, you can't fake it. So now you have to put in the value to get the representation of that value. You cannot cheat at that, not at this point, right? And hopefully ever, So if that is true, then the first time, if you subscribe to the digital world, we had something that represents the real value that we all share, which is time and energy. And nobody no human on this planet Earth can say that energy and time is not valuable. So now if we all share that value, that means that we all share the value for Bitcoin. And that means that Bitcoin is value if you subscribe to the digital world. Now, if you don't, and you don't care about digital world, then yes, it doesn't have any value to you.
Yeah, but it doesn't. It's not going to matter, because whether you know about Bitcoin or not, there's going to be systems. Your daily life will be starting and more centered around it, even though you're not aware of it. And just for example, hey, you know what? We're starting to employ more and more people. Well, why are we able to do that? It's because of Bitcoin. It's because that's what, and so even though people don't know, that what Bitcoin is, they are still benefiting from it. Particularly, because we are creating a whole new class of wealth, and the people that are hodlers, they have a different mindset. We do have a long-term thinking.
I think it's more generous.
Yes, and there's going to be and we're more independent, and yes, we're far more generous, and we do want other people to for the most part, we want people to succeed.
So like I could say from my point of view, because I see myself as a little different from before Bitcoin and after Bitcoin, right? We can't say before and after, but before I got in Bitcoin, after Bitcoin, I think it changed me. What do you think?
Oh yes, it did. It definitely because it it offers something that we did not really think was possible. And now we see that it is. It's still, again, that's why I don't say it's a store of value, because it's a lousy one. It's a lousy cash. It's a speculation, but it's a good speculation.
I have an idea how to address the store of value, but that's for another discussion.
Well, it's a store of value if you understand in the long run, yes, but I'm talking about it is a speculation, and and the governments can make it very difficult, and
yeah, so Bitcoin is obviously faced a lot of challenges, right?
But because it's a speculation, because it's a speculation, you don't put everything in Bitcoin. You limit to maybe no more than 15% of your wealth.
If you in the 70s, when we went off the gold standard, if you were to kept whatever you earn in real estate, you would have done probably the same way, as your lifestyle would be exact same what the people had in 50s and 60s. I think that's but the responsibility came that you had to invest in real estate, like or your lifestyle will keep going down. So that's the way I see it.
You have to save in something. Yes, you have to save. It can be Lambos, but you have to save in something.
Yeah. So basically, you have to invest into something that does not depreciate over time, and that was your responsibility. And that's why I think that's what the wealth gap started happening. And I think if it was a big difference between the people who kept stuffing money in stocks and people who invest in real estate, right? And there was a difference between like knowing something. Okay, oh, that's how the world works right now. I'm going to be doing this. So nothing different, right? They work the same jobs, everything, but this person bought the real estate and that person didn't. So one person maintained the life, sort of the lifestyle under the changing economy. Another person didn't, and it obviously wasn't.
Well, you know what? I think all of these things that we're talking about are great, but I'm better off just talking about the markets, and you're better off developing your X's and O's, because all the rest of these things we're not going to solve. And so we have to be practical on that. And that's the thing that I like about Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a very practical asset. It just is. I mean, how else can I send somebody money all across the world for nothing?
Yeah, absolutely. Bitcoin has so many features that like we have not seen this before, right?
And I've had 6 bank accounts closed. It just we're always, and but you're responsible for it. I mean, I just wrote that article a few weeks ago. We thought we lost 20 Bitcoin.
Hmm.
But boy, that disrupted our life for about 24 hours. So we, figured out how to get it back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but it does. It teaches you responsibility. It really does teach you to be responsible for yourself, and that's
And it
gonna.
also teaches you maturity too, because like if you're spazzing out and selling when you're not supposed to be selling, and buying when you're not supposed to be buying, that is um can so some people out there that burn from Bitcoin, right? Because
Oh,
of its the
look, a
because
lot of
it's
people, but most of the people that I gave Bitcoin to, they sold it. They sold it. They made a
yeah,
little bit and
yeah,
sold it, and they were happy.
yeah,
Very few. The hodling is hard to do. It really is.
yeah. So I think that there's a lesson there, right? Is that if you were to really um, look at it and learn, you can do very well, and Bitcoin can treat you fantastically, and if you looking at this without any kind of idea, without any kind of understanding, it could be super dangerous.
Well, the way I see the future is it's the development. The next phase is going to come from fellow entrepreneurs, and it's mainly our task to have them recognize the value. Because
Mhm.
if you're an entrepreneur, you know what it's like to be taxed. You know how things can be taken away of you so quickly. And if you're stuck in a country, you can't move out because you got all your factors, whatever. But Bitcoin gives you that element of freedom. You may not be
Freedom,
able to leave the
exactly,
country. But your wealth can. Your
exactly.
wealth does not have
Well,
to be there. And so, and that's the real. I mean, I'm in Mexico now, and it's relatively Bitcoin friendly, but that could change overnight. Well, guess
yes,
what? I won't be in Mexico anymore. All those assets I have in Mexico, I'll kiss them goodbye. They might be nationalized. Who knows?
yeah,
And that's the value.
yeah,
And so it's going to be competing. If countries want to get the productive citizens in their countries, they're going to have to be competing to attract us Bitcoin holders.
absolutely. That's a very interesting point. Yeah, yeah, that will happen.
Yeah. Well, hey, Gustav, I think
All right.
we've covered everything, and
Yeah,
and we don't want to
was
bore these
really
people. But what
pleasure
we
to have you, here. I don't know, maybe we're gonna make this a standard thing where like I'm interviewing guests, under this giant bird of paradise. But it was a pleasure to have you here. Like I was reading your articles, for quite some time now. Is learned a lot from you, and I highly recommend for people to check, Ugly Old Goat. You're going to be creating your own website right now, so
Yeah, we're in the middle of it. I'm getting my kids involved, and it's kind of a big family thing. I got
yeah.
a good developer, and
Is
there's a
and
lot to it.
it's to help people to manage their finances.
It You
Uh,
know
to
what? I
to
want it to be a blue collar website, and I want it to I mean, my goal is where I got inspired is Chris DeRose was interviewing Roger Ver,
Mhm.
and Chris DeRose says, "Well, I've checked all the websites, and your website's the best one on Bitcoin." And you know what? Chris DeRose is right. Bitcoin needs to have a place where we know we can go here.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying my website, but I'm doing this to finance it, and we'll go the next step. But we need to create a one shop place where people can get all the good information, because I don't know, and it needs to be, and that won't be just me. It's
Something
going to
needs to
take
be,
all the top
ironically, needs
people.
to be
We need to
centralized.
form our own little, not an ICO, but a strategic partnership of people that know, to the different aspects of Bitcoin, so we
Right.
can guide people in the right direction. And I'm done my little marketing. I have plans in the future. We're going to see where it goes, but you'll have to wait and see. But I have ways that I think I can drive people to the website. But the key is not the average Joe right now. The key is going to be fellow entrepreneurs. I divided into there's two kinds of entrepreneurs. There's
Mm.
one with Bitcoin
Mhm.
and one without.
Mhm.
And so my key is, when I find a guy that is doing good work for me, I encourage and maybe for example, the builder of our house, Armando, a great guy, and I said, you need to take 10 or 15% of the payment in Bitcoin. Just hold on to it.
Mhm.
Well, it was at $10,000 now, so I don't think he may not hold me that higher. No, we're still very good friends, and he understands why, why he's holding it. But that's what we need to do. We need to get it to just kind of make this happen, one step at a time. And people need to understand the real value of Bitcoin, and it's not the center of your life, but it's your escape. It's your escape hatch. It's your torch of freedom that you have. You grew up
You mentioned
well.
this word freedom quite some time, and I think it's like in summary, like if people want to have financial freedom, they should definitely go and check you out there. And I think we both go. The common goal is financial freedom for
Yep.
as many people as possible. I guess that's what we
Yeah,
share.
and Bitcoin will help provide that.
And
You know,
Bitcoin
it will help you provide.
is the frontier
Okay.
in this.
Hey, before we go, I want you to grab your staff there. And we're talking about we're going to learn to trade. You have to learn to dance, right? You have to do the dance.
All right.
Okay, so we have. I've
the
started. We have the ugly old goat dance, and it goes like this. It goes hodl, 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 save, 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 build a, build a, build a, sound money, sound money. Now, BitConnect, right? You heard of BitConnect.
right,
Okay,
right.
well, everybody laughs at BitConnect. But, they had one thing going for them that Bitcoin needs to have, and we need to have more enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to get up and dance, so you may be a little more reserved than that, but I'm going to get up.
Go ahead,
And
do your dance.
you can come up. You can see if you can do a step with me a little bit. Come on up here. Are we ready?
All right. So
Okay.
huddle,
Huddle, huddle. Save,
save.
build, build, build. Sound money, sound money.
Yeah.
It was fun. Hey, man, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, enjoyed it a lot. Thanks a lot for coming around. I hope viewers got some value out of this.
Oh, that looks good with the tag on it. What was the name of that show? Hillbilly something. That old lady always had a tag
All
on
right.
her head.
So, do we have any questions?
First question is, do you recommend leverage trading? If so, any advice for those new to leverage but not new to swing trading?
What's your advice to that?
Well, you got if you're going to trade, you want to trade on leverage. So you don't have to. When I started, you really don't have to trade Bitcoin on leverage, but I do, and by far the best exchange I found is BitMEX, which is not really a Bitcoin exchange; it's a derivative market. But by far, and that's what I recommend people trade on, and you just put a small part of your hodl on there if you want to learn trading. But trading's not for everybody. You don't have to trade to be successful in Bitcoin.
Yes, absolutely. You can just invest as well. And what I have to say about this is that this leverage can be very helpful if you use it not to increase your risk, but just to take on position that you normally wouldn't be able to. For example, if we're entering the bull market and you have Bitcoin, right? How do you buy more Bitcoin with Bitcoin? Let's say when we have a dip and you're trying to time that. And the way to buy Bitcoin with Bitcoin is use leverage. Don't use the leverage more than you have, but use that leverage to be able to do that. So let's say if you have one Bitcoin, and then we have a dip, but we're in a bull market, and then you time that pretty well. You can put like half a Bitcoin in there and trade that half a Bitcoin, and whenever price goes up, not only your Bitcoin goes up in value, but you trade as well, right? So I think those are the gold nuggets on using the leverage for your benefit and not how it's meant to be used for. You just use it to get your benefit, but not increase the risk. But that's what I have to say about that.
Next question is from Maria. What time frames do you look before taking a trade? What time frames do you look?
What time frames do you like, Ugly? I know you like weekly.
Oh, I look okay. The ones that I look at most would be the weekly, the daily, and 30-minute.
The weekly, daily, and 30-minute.
Yep, that'd be the ones. But those are the ones that I like, and I'll probably be writing more of that in the newsletter. How I use the weekly and the daily, and I look at the 2 days on each of those candles. Those are kind of, but it's really, those are just techniques and standards that I've used. You're going to find your own standards. What I like about what Kostas has done is he's found a whole new way of looking at the market, and I think it has a wonderful potential and possibility. And what he's, because it's so clear and so true, and I don't think it's just a phenomena of this generation. I just think for some reason it stands out. It's so obvious, and yet we missed it.
Right. It's when you see it, it's so obvious, and you see, oh my God, everything's built out of that.
Yeah,
It's like,
it's like, yeah, it's just that's what the
brick.
stones, that's what the building stones are, and
Yeah.
there's just cement in between. And that's why I think this is when I saw this, I said, I didn't think that he could change the way I look at a chart, but actually he did, and that's what's really cool. So now, yeah, I'll be implementing this. I'm not sure exactly how yet.
Yeah, I think there's something there. I think there's a marriage between the execution and the following that code, that pattern, the mathematical model.
Well, I would like to see what some of the I'd love to see what Tyler Jenks thinks about your Y's and H's and tone vays too. I think these are two guys, and also Vincent and Willie Woo. These guys are, they're good experienced traders. But when I saw this, I said, this is truly something new, and it has merit. And I've looked at a lot of things, and like I say, most of it I throw away. This one, I didn't throw it away because it just was so simple and so beautiful that there's something there.
Yeah, I do believe so as well. Thank you. All right.
Last question from LJ asking, what will it take for Ugly to show his real face?
Oh, what will it take? It's not like you're hiding the face.
No, I can take it. My real, I've done that regularly. In fact, I think if you go to my last video, I had to take it off because the sound quality was so bad. The only reason I haven't taken it off is because this guy knows what he's doing on YouTube, and I don't.
Yeah. Well,
Is the audio quality good? Okay. See, that's the difference. So I need to have this kind of quality at my house as well as Kostas's house.
yeah, we'll sort that out. No problems. Yeah,
All right.
we're gonna make it all work.
Well, it's too bad they can't see our two beautiful wives, but that's for us to enjoy and not for them, right?
Yeah, that's behind the scenes.
Okay. So long, guys.
All right, guys. Bye-bye.
All right. I think it went well.
Yeah, I think.